In 1962, park rangers were ordered to abandon a canyon they had patrolled for years. There was no public announcement, no warning signs, and no official explanation. The strangest part wasn't just that they were told to leave, but how fast it all happened. Within 48 hours, every single ranger assigned to the area was gone. Trails disappeared from park maps, patrol logs were sealed away, and anyone who asked questions was given the same simple answer: geological instability. But that explanation never quite fit what the rangers themselves had been reporting in the weeks leading up to the evacuation. Because this canyon wasn't collapsing, it was responding. For years, it had been a routine, predictable place. It was mapped, logged, and studied. Hundreds of patrols had passed through without a single incident. Then, in the early winter of 1962, the patrol reports started to change. It wasn't dramatic at first, just a few odd phrases buried in the official language. Echo delay, voice repetition, directional confusion. At first, supervisors blamed the cold or fatigue or strange wind patterns. But the reports kept coming, and they got weirder. One ranger wrote that after calling in a routine status check over his radio, his own transmission came back to him seconds later. It wasn't an echo, it was a reply, using his exact words, in his exact tone, coming from deeper inside the canyon. Another patrol noted that sounds just weren't behaving naturally anymore. Footsteps would echo where no one was walking. Voices would shift direction in the middle of a sentence, as if they were moving completely independently of the terrain. Still, no official action was taken, not until the physical evidence started to appear. In February, rangers discovered fresh boot prints inside restricted sections of the canyon, areas that had been sealed off for months. There were no recent patrols, no hikers had been through, and there were no access points. Yet the prints were there, perfectly spaced, uniform, in depth, not scattered or overlapping, as if someone had just walked straight in. Even more unsettling was where the tracks ended. They didn't turn around, and they didn't fade out. They just stopped, often right at a sheer rock wall or a sealed-off ravine, as if whoever made them had stepped directly into the stone itself. Equipment failures started happening soon after. Radios would cut out at the exact same coordinates on every single patrol. Compasses would spin slowly and then just freeze. Wristwatches would stop for minutes at a time before suddenly resuming as if nothing had happened. One ranger documented losing nearly 10 minutes of recorded time during a routine walk. His body camera footage later showed him just standing still, staring into a canyon wall, completely unmoving. He had no memory of the moment whatsoever. By March, hikers began reporting something far more troubling: voices. People claimed they heard their names being called from down below the ridge, and when they would call back, the voices answered them, not randomly, but directly. That report finally forced a response from park management. 2 senior rangers were dispatched to investigate. They entered the canyon just before dusk. Only one of them returned. He emerged hours later, long after nightfall, disoriented but physically unharmed. He was carrying equipment that did not belong to him. When his supervisors questioned him, his statements kept shifting. He contradicted himself on times, locations, and the events of the patrol. But one detail never changed. He insisted there was someone else inside the canyon with them. It wasn't another ranger, and it wasn't a hiker. It was something that felt familiar, but deeply, deeply wrong. Within 48 hours, the evacuation order was issued. All patrols were suspended. Access points were quietly removed from all maps and records, and the rangers were reassigned with strict instructions not to discuss any of their prior activity in the canyon. Officially, the reason for the closure remained geological instability. But internally, something very different was being written down. Sealed memos from early 1962 reference persistent auditory anomalies incompatible with natural acoustics. Another document warns of an unverified human presence with no identifiable origin or exit. And there's one phrase that appears multiple times across several different reports: psychological contamination. It's a term that was never defined. By summer, the canyon had vanished entirely from all ranger training materials. The missing ranger was officially declared lost in a rock, even though no debris was ever found and no remains were ever recovered. Decades passed. Then, during a routine transfer of old park records, a sealed archive box surfaced. Inside were old patrol maps, handwritten notes, and several reel-to-reel audio tapes, dated early 1962. One tape stood out from the rest. It begins with standard patrol audio, wind, footsteps, a bit of radio static, but then a second voice becomes audible. It's not coming through the radio, and it doesn't belong to another ranger. It's close. Too close. The voice begins repeating phrases spoken by the ranger just moments earlier, but it speaks them slower, more distorted, as if it's learning how to speak by imitation. Near the very end of the tape, you can hear heavy, panicked breathing, followed by a whispered sentence spoken just off mic. It knows the paths. The recording cuts out right there. No further patrol recordings exist after that date. To this day, the canyon remains closed. There are no warning signs, no fences, just an empty space on the map where trails once existed. Former rangers who are assigned to that region refuse to speak about it publicly. But those who do speak privately, off the record, all agree on one thing. The order back in 1962 was not about public safety. It was about containment. Whatever caused the evacuation was never removed. It was left exactly where it was found, and it has not been forgotten. If you want to understand why certain places are erased from history instead of being explained, make sure you subscribed, because some stories are buried for a very good reason. Thanks for watching.